Hey, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
I'm Lara.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Kayla.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
Doing good.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, I've got a good one for you today.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Have
We always have good ones.
Oh,
You
thank
find
you.
all the good ones.
That is true.
If it's not super interesting, I don't want to spend hours researching it. So
Yeah, no.
Understandable.
that is part of it. This one I haven't heard covered before.
Oh,
I found it when I was researching something else. And I was like, how have I not heard this one?
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Always crazy when it's a new one for you, our expert.
I know. This one's fairly recent from the 90s, but there was a film made in 2014 called Foxcatcher. Did any of you see that?
No.
Heard of it, but no, I never saw it.
I believe Steve Carell plays our main person in this, John du Pont. Have you heard of the du Pont
That
family?
name is very familiar.
That name sounds familiar to me too.
They're one of the wealthiest families in the country. They
Mhm.
basically are like Delaware.
That's crazy.
I mean, they are worth over $14 billion today.
Wow.
Wow.
hmm Okay, so in the movie on this, Steve Carell plays John du Pont. Channing Tatum plays Mark Schultz. Mark Ruffalo plays David Schultz. Oh, and Sienna Miller plays Dave Schultz's wife, Nancy.
I'm gonna have to watch the
Interesting.
movie after this.
Yeah, you can kind of picture them maybe a little bit as we go through it. I think that might help.
Channing Tatum always helps. So.
Yeah, never gonna
Throwing that out
complain
there.
about that.
Yes, agreed. We were watching that Amanda Bynes one that he's in.
Oh,
She's the man.
That one is
Love
he's
it.
so funny in that one.
I totally forgot he was in it. I mean, it came out so long ago.
Yeah.
And then she
I think
wanted
that was like the first movie I ever really saw him in.
Mhm.
That one or
probably.
Step Up.
I was going to say Step Up is the first one I remember him from, but I don't know which one came out first.
Mm.
that's what I remember him from first to
Yeah.
Step Up.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
I
need
love
to watch
She's the
that.
Man.
So funny.
So
funny.
funny.
I need to watch that again.
I mean, the tampon up the nose. It's just great.
You like cheese
My favorite's Gouda.
with the hand. Now I gotta watch that again.
I believe it's on Disney, Disney Plus.
So
I
that
don't
one
have that anymore.
came out around the same time as like John Tucker Must Die. And so
Yes.
I always associate those two with each other for some reason.
I
in my
love
brain.
that one too.
That one is funny.
Isn't that funny when they come out side by side? You just
Yeah.
always think of them together.
Like Barbenheimer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Both good. Very different.
hmm Both hilarious.
Yeah.
Wait. You're not talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer being
I am
both
not.
hilarious.
No.
I was like, wait a
She
second.
reverted back to She's the Man.
I'm
Gotcha.
still thinking about that. Yeah.
I was like, that one's not hilarious.
No, not
No.
at all. No.
Barbie.
Barbie, definitely, but
Yeah.
That was a great
Oppenheimer,
one.
not so much.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to start by picturing a chilly afternoon in Pennsylvania. It's January 1996. A enormous, over 800-acre estate is the home to one of America's richest men. This man drives up to a guest house on the estate where his friend, an Olympic gold medal wrestler, is working on his car in the driveway. The millionaire rolls down his window. He asks, "You got a problem with me?" And then, without warning, opens fire. When the gunshots stop, the wrestler, Dave Schultz, lies dying on the ground. And the wealthy man speeds off to barricade himself inside a mansion.
That's crazy.
hmm
Yeah. This then triggered a 2-day police standoff that ensued with a heavily armed madman inside a 47-room mansion.
Oof.
It makes sense why this was turned into a Hollywood thriller,
Yeah.
right? But unfortunately, it's all horrifyingly true. The actual story is even more wild than the movie. Today, we're talking about John du Pont, who he was beyond just the, quote, weirdo that Steve Carell played in a movie. which is sometimes how it is referenced in sources, and how a member of one of America's richest families ended up murdering an Olympic hero. The name DuPont carries serious weight in American history. The DuPont family has been one of the country's richest and most powerful dynasties since the 19th century, building a fortune first in the gunpowder business and later in chemicals and automotive industries. As of just a few years ago, the family fortune was estimated at over $14 billion, spread among thousands of relatives at this point. In other words, the DuPonts aren't just rich, they're rich.
Mm-hmm.
They own half of Delaware rich. Their money came from supplying gunpowder for wars, later the stuff that makes life possible, modern life anyways, from plastics to paint. Essentially, if you've ever used a nonstick pan or worn a piece of polyester, you've contributed a few cents to the DuPont legacy.
Wow.
John du Pont was born with the proverbial silver spoon, maybe a platinum spoon, in his mouth. Heir to the DuPont chemical fortune, John was born in 1938 and grew up on this massive family estate outside of Philadelphia. The estate, called Lessiter Hall Farm, was a wedding gift to his parents. I would have liked a wedding gift like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It spanned hundreds of acres. Growing up, John had everything: private tutors, prestige, and more money than he could ever spend. But he was also a bit of an odd duck from the start. And honestly, when you hear a little bit about his childhood, that won't surprise you. He was the youngest of 4 children, but he was quite a bit younger than the other 3. They all had their own stuff going on by the time he came around. His parents divorced when he was only 2, and his dad was gone all the time, so he was raised mostly by his mother, whose name was Jean. She was really wrapped up in horses. That was her passion, and it took all of her time. By most accounts, John was the shy, awkward kid who didn't fit in with the high society crowd that he was always forced to be around, even though he was very wealthy. John had very limited interactions with other people. It was said that he hadn't even eaten dinner with other people until he was well into his teens.
What?
He ate dinner in his room alone every night that a maid would bring to him.
That's so sad.
Yeah. He did have a best friend for a while, the family's chauffeur's son, until unfortunately he found out one day that Jean, his mom, had paid the kid to be his friend,
Oh,
which is also sad.
that is
so much
sad.
worse.
Yes. John tried to find his place in the world through numerous eclectic interests. He studied science, and he actually even earned a PhD in natural science, and he became a published ornithologist.
Isn't that the study of birds?
It is.
Yeah. I knew
Yes.
something.
He was a bird researcher.
Mhm.
He wasn't content with just birds, though. He was also a philatelist. Do you know what that one is?
No. I wouldn't guess it either.
A stamp collector.
Oh,
He was also a conchologist.
study of shells.
Yes. Very
Conch,
good.
Yep.
Yep.
Conch, yeah.
A seashell collector. Basically, he was an all-around collector of everything. If there was a hobby suited for a quirky millionaire, John du Pont had it. He reportedly amassed over 1 million seashells
Wow.
and 100,000 bird specimens for his personal museum.
What does that mean?
That's cool.
Yeah.
What does what mean?
Bird specimens?
Did he have like an aviary or were they dead?
Well, he founded the Delaware Museum of Natural History in 1972 to house his collections. So I'm thinking
They were stuffed birds.
they were
yeah.
stuffed birds.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk about needing extra storage space for your
Mhm.
hobbies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's by a museum. Okay.
Yeah.
As one does.
All the time.
And he was really into his collections. In 1980, he paid $935,000 for one of the rarest stamps in the world.
Why can't I find one of those to sell to somebody?
Yeah, because today that is worth $3.8 million.
Wow.
But in the 80s, he paid nearly $1 million for a postage stamp. And for context, that same stamp, which is the British Guiana 1C Magenta, sold for $9.5 million in 2014.
Wow.
Mhm. So I guess it was a decent investment.
That is
Yeah.
definitely a rich person's hobby.
Yeah.
Just walking around buying tiny stamps for almost $10 million. That's
Right?
wild.
John's attachment to this particular stamp that he bought was unique. He was so paranoid about its safety that he slept with the stamp hidden under his pillow when he traveled with it.
Wow.
So thankfully, he wasn't a restless sleeper. That stamp would have been destroyed.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has to have a safe somewhere.
He has a lot of them actually,
Yeah.
but it had to go with him
Well, yeah.
as one does.
Emotional support.
I
stamp.
guess
Emotional
so. An emotional support stamp.
I like it.
Oh, I
Probably
like
just
that
didn't actually
too.
trust the safe, but
That's easier to bring on a plane than
That's true.
your emotional support snake or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Your
sure.
stuffed bird collection.
Yeah, that's true too.
Emotional support ostrich.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The DuPont family legacy also included a strain of eccentricity and, frankly, some questionable beliefs. John's mother, for instance, was extremely conservative and reportedly had little love for some of John's interests. She particularly disliked wrestling, which we'll get to soon. John grew up in this very insulated world of wealth and privilege where normal rules did not apply. Imagine being a kid and knowing your family literally built museums, owned mansions, and had a name plastered on universities and even a state. Delaware and DuPont are practically synonymous. That was John's reality. By the time he reached adulthood, he was worth an estimated $200 million around the 1980s.
Wow.
So over $600 million today.
Wow.
Well, actually almost $800 million. With that kind of wealth, it's the kind of life where no one ever tells you no. Not a great setup for developing a firm grip on reality. What do you do when you're a socially awkward multi-millionaire with a need to prove yourself? In John du Pont's case, you reinvent yourself as a sports patron and surround yourself with athletes who have the glory you never earned. John had always been interested in sports. He loved swimming, he loved the pentathlon and wrestling. He was great at the pentathlon. He actually earned a spot on the 1976 U.S. Olympic team.
That's
Wow.
cool.
He really loved wrestling, though, but he was never allowed to play contact sports growing up. So never got to,
Actually do it.
Yep. Now, John du Pont could have just been another rich eccentric known for collecting stamps and birds, but he craved something else. He really wanted respect in the world of sports. The DuPont family had a history with athletic pursuits. Horse racing was a big one for them. John's father, William, was a famous horse breeder with a racing stable named Foxcatcher. John had a little trauma, though, related to horse racing. When he was younger, he was in an accident that caused him to lose both his testicles.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
in a bad accident.
Yeah. Not even sure how that happened, but would be awful.
You got
Yeah.
picked or something, maybe.
Yep. John inherited that competitive itch, and his sport of choice, like we said, unusual for a, quote, high society gentleman. He was obsessed with wrestling. By the 1980s, John used a chunk of his fortune to build a state-of-the-art wrestling training facility on the family estate. He took the name Foxcatcher from his dad's horse stable and christened his amateur sports program Team Foxcatcher. It wasn't just wrestling. He also sponsored swimmers, pentathletes, and other Olympic hopefuls, but wrestling was his true love.
It's making me think of the billionaire on Friends who decides to be a wrestler.
Oh my gosh, it is absolutely that. And honestly, it's almost the same time frame
Yeah.
as when this all
Maybe
happened.
Pete was based on.
Maybe they're making fun of him.
Honestly, though,
Maybe.
Maybe.
yeah.
That's what I keep thinking of, the rich guy who's like, I'm going to be a wrestler.
Yeah. I'm going to pay for the best coaches in the world.
He wanted to be the ultimate fighting champion.
Yes.
Yes.
there's more times in this that is going to scream at you because John also wanted to be the ultimate wrestling champion.
Okay. Yeah, I think Pete was based on John du Pont.
I think so too. I think so.
I'm ashamed that did not cross my mind as I was researching this. Great point.
That's so funny. That was the first thing I was like, friends. A millionaire wrestler.
Yep.
Who had never wrestled before.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
The Foxcatcher Farm Training Center was located on his 440-acre Newton Square, Pennsylvania property. It had top-notch equipment, gyms, and even housing for athletes. The training center was 14,000 square feet, so John basically created his own Olympic village in his backyard.
Wow.
And crucially, he bankrolled these athletes' lives. He gave them salaries, housing, he paid for the training expenses, the works. At a time when USA Wrestling had very little funding, John's support really was a godsend for many athletes. He was hailed as a generous benefactor. One wrestler later said that DuPont paid each athlete about $24,000 a year, which allowed them to train full-time when otherwise they might have had to quit the sport. The U.S. wasn't a dominant force in wrestling because they didn't fund their wrestling athletes. Many would age out of the sport and have to go get a different job, which made it so they didn't have the time to train. Other countries were funding their athletes and becoming the best of the best. So in the beginning, John was seen as a hero in amateur sports circles. If you were an Olympic-level wrestler in the 80s, Foxcatcher Farm was the place to be. It was this plush paradise where you could just focus on being the best, thanks to this quirky rich guy who loved the sport. By the 1980s, Team Foxcatcher had attracted many of the world's top wrestlers. Among them were the Schultz brothers, Mark and Dave, who were legends in the sport. Both Schultz brothers had won gold at the 1984 Olympics. Can you imagine having two kids or brothers or whatever that go to the Olympics and both win gold?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, true crime and dark history fans. This is Diego, the host of Lore and Crime. If you enjoy eerie folklore and real mysteries, you have to check out my new show. In each episode, we unfold a forgotten murder or haunted legend in a narrated short novel form. Don't miss the next original tale. Subscribe to Lore and Crime wherever you get your podcasts.
They were, at the time, America's wrestling golden boys. Mark was the younger brother. He was a fiery competitor. Dave, the older brother, was not just a champion, but also beloved as this kind of guru in the wrestling community. He was a guy who'd help coach others, give them tips, always smiling, always chill. Dave's wife later recalled the first time she met him. She asked him what he did, and he responded, "I wrestle." He didn't elaborate. He didn't mention that not only did he wrestle, he was an Olympic gold
medalist.
winner. Yeah.
I'm actually really good at wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah. No, not,
Just I
not
wrestle.
Dave. It wasn't until later when she saw all of his trophies and his medals that she understood just how incredible he was at the sport. Reportedly, she said, "Oh, you're really good at this." And Dave just smiled and said, "Yeah, I like it." She was his biggest fan, always supporting his workouts, going with him on any trips. And honestly, they sound like an adorable couple, like relationship goals, you know? One of Dave's friends, a guy named Eric Deuce, described him as super mellow, unassuming, underdressed always, but, you know, a genius freak when it came to wrestling.
Underdressed always. That's funny.
Yeah. Dave knew that the Russians had some of the best wrestlers in the world. By the early 80s, they had around 50 world championships to their name, and they had only joined competitive wrestling in the 1950s. Dave decided to learn the Russian language so that he could hear what the Russian coaches were saying because they were so talented.
Wow.
Pretty smart.
That's pretty cool.
In 1987, Mark was recruited by du Pont and came to Foxcatcher to train. Dave, his older brother, joined the following year in 1988. For John, bagging the Schultzes for Team Foxcatcher was a huge prestige boost. It was like a tech startup getting Steve Jobs to come on board at the beginning, like a really big deal. At first, things seemed great. Du Pont had 2 Olympic champions living on his estate. He was living his dreams, surrounding himself with elite athletes who perhaps gave him the respect and camaraderie he'd always lacked in his high society life. Dave Schultz especially became close to John. Dave was naturally gregarious and patient, the kind of guy who could befriend anyone. And he had a way of humoring John's, shall we say, eccentricities. Dave genuinely appreciated what John was doing for wrestling. He even publicly defended du Pont, saying, "You know what the best thing to happen to amateur wrestling was? John du Pont." That was Dave's sentiment in the early days, that John's patronage was a net positive for their sport. Dave and his wife Nancy and their 2 young kids lived in a cozy cottage on Foxcatcher Farm, which was provided by John. By all accounts, for a while, it really was an idyllic arrangement. World-class training right outside your door, a safe community of other athletes, and a wealthy benefactor footing all the bills. What could go wrong? Well, everything, as it turns out. Mark clashed with John from the beginning. He always had this feeling that he was kind of, quote, bought and paid for, or another collectible that John loved so much.
She probably was.
It makes total sense, right?
Based on all of his other hobbies. Yeah.
And collections.
Yes.
Yeah.
He told writer Mark Oliver later, "We were his newest trophies. If you didn't want to be displayed on his wall, he threatened to ruin you." In the same interview, allegedly, Mark Schultz told Mark Oliver that he intentionally took a dive at his trial match for the Olympics just to keep du Pont from, quote, getting the satisfaction of the win.
Oh.
That's unfortunate.
John felt like the wrestlers living on his compound were family, though. Some of them, especially Dave and Nancy. He would spend all the holidays with them, inviting them to his home on the property to celebrate. Nancy said that one Christmas, John called her up to make sure she knew he didn't have a high chair at the house. "Make sure you bring one," he told her. Nancy said she was touched. She recounted this in the Foxcatcher film, or Team Foxcatcher, which was a documentary on all of this, and said that John really didn't usually call her directly, so it meant a lot that he wanted to make sure they had a nice holiday. So there was something inside of him that was really trying to connect, she felt like, but yeah. Now, calling John merely a sponsor would be too simple. He did not want to sit on the sidelines. He wanted to be in the mix. He fancied himself a coach and a mentor, despite having almost no competitive wrestling background, aside from a very brief stint in high school. He insisted the wrestlers call him coach, or even by his unofficial nickname that he made up, the Golden Eagle.
Just going straight for it.
Can you imagine? Now you're all going to call me the Golden Eagle.
Oh. And he wouldn't
You like it, right?
respond if they didn't, if that was what he wanted to be called that day.
Well,
Checks out. I roll over here.
Yes.
Okay.
He loved, in quotation marks, training with the wrestlers and would insist that they wrestle him. Wrestler Trevor.
Just imagine they're like,
Okay.
So you're picturing Channing Tatum wrestling Steve Carell.
yes.
Just
Yeah.
to get that in your brain.
Did he make them let him win?
Well, yes, but it gets even more than that.
Okay.
So wrestler Trevor Lewis said, "You'd wrestle with him. You'd let him score a bit. It's kind of like play wrestling." And in his own mind, he's like, "Yeah, I'm hanging with these guys." There's one home video where John is wrestling with Robbie Calabrese, who was a coach, and Rob had John pinned. And John says to the camera, "I'm afraid to hurt Robbie, you know?" Sure.
He's being strangled on the ground.
Yep.
Checks
I don't
out.
want to hurt him.
Yeah.
I gave up.
Otherwise, he would throw down. Oh, and because John was the boss, the one in charge, they all wanted to keep him happy. So it went like that for a while.
Well, yeah, they wanted to keep getting paid.
Yeah, he's
And
paying
live
them
on-
and
yeah.
letting him live there.
Yeah.
John didn't understand that they were humoring him, though. He thought he was really good. So good, in fact, in his 50s, John started entering some masters wrestling competitions himself.
Oh, boy.
So this 55-year-old, somewhat frail millionaire tried to compete on the mat with veteran wrestlers. He also had asked Dave to help him train.
Those are the Pete vibes right there.
Yes, well, he wasn't very good,
Yeah.
but no one was going to tell him that. But, they kept play wrestling with him and everyone would just smile. The first
That's
few
so
matches
funny.
that he entered did not go well.
Shocking. Yeah.
Mhm. So
Did he not want to hurt those wrestlers either?
I guarantee there was some sort of something like that.
They're like, hey,
Yeah.
just humor him for a minute.
Well, so he made his own tournament.
Oh,
The John du Pont Masters World Tournament for wrestlers in their 40s and 50s. Yeah. It wasn't a super crowded division, as you can imagine. They put on staged events where, according to Team Foxcatcher pentathlete, a guy named Mike said, quote, "You have these gorillas coming out to wrestle John and then rolling on their back. And John's the champion and people are cheering his name. It was completely absurd. They pay off the losers." And John thought it was all real.
Poor,
oh my gosh.
kind of poor John, but also he set himself up for
That's
that.
like
so.
the same thing when
Yeah.
he was a kid and his mom paying the kid to be his friend.
Yeah.
He's like
Yep.
paying all these guys to be his friend and then thinks it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
And he has no understanding of reality because of
he's
all
never
of that.
had real friends, probably.
Exactly.
Or even lost for real.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about Foxcatcher Farm. It wasn't just for wrestling and other sports. There was a lot of goose hunting done on Foxcatcher property. I guess sometimes people with big estates here in the U.S. will allow hunting on the premises, usually for a fee. Also on Foxcatcher Farms, they had a shooting range. At Foxcatcher, the goose hunting was monitored by the Newton Square Police Department. John even had a sergeant who lived at Foxcatcher to help with the hunters and any of the issues that might come up. John decided this was the coolest thing ever. So he applied to be a reserve police officer. He got paid $1 a year for it. He owned a helicopter that he'd loan out to the cops if they needed it. And he even got his own uniform. He got to do ride-alongs every now and then. It's giving Dwight Schrute
I was
vibes.
just thinking that too. I was
Volunteer
like,
sheriff's deputy.
Mm-hmm.
this sounds just like Dwight.
Yeah.
Was he living his life off of TV shows?
Or all these
His
TV
All
life
these
shows
TV
made
shows
fun
making
of
fun
him.
of him.
Yep.
So funny.
However, John correctly assumed that his money and these new connections with law enforcement meant he could do whatever he wanted to do, especially on his own land. He even went and had a Foxcatcher Farms flag made, which he flew above the American flag on his estate.
Oh, John.
John du Pont's quirks were always there, but a lot of times and for many years, people brushed them off because, let's face it, money can smooth over a lot of weird behavior. But after the death of John's mother in 1988, his eccentricities started curdling into something darker. With his mother gone, John had free reign of the estate. He immediately moved from his, quote, smaller, which was still huge, house into the grand mansion, and he expanded the wrestling facilities. It was like now that Mommy Dearest was no longer around to frown upon sweaty wrestlers traipsing through her horse farm, John could fully indulge in these athletic fantasies. However, he also became increasingly isolated and paranoid. Some friends later noted that John's mental health seemed to nosedive around this time. He grew obsessed with security, and he was convinced that enemies lurked everywhere.
Coming for his stamps.
Yeah. Or birds. Or seashells.
Or wrestlers.
Yep.
One of those collectibles.
One of them.
Now, you have to remember this was a man with virtually limitless resources and no one to tell him, no, that's crazy. So John acted on his delusions. According to court testimony, by the early 1990s, he had installed razor wire inside the walls of his mansion because he thought people might crawl through the walls to get him.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He had his staff dig up large portions of the estate, searching for underground tunnels that he believed intruders were burrowing towards his house.
Wow.
And we'll do everything except go to therapy.
Oh, yes. You nailed it. And again, he has nobody telling him that's crazy.
Yeah.
And telling him to go to therapy.
And they're just doing it.
They're like, yeah, no, we'll dig up all
We'll
of
do it,
this
yeah.
and we'll put razor in your walls.
Yeah, pay us. We'll do whatever you want.
Exactly. Pay us a lot of money.
Yeah. If it sounds like he was living in a spy thriller, that's exactly it. John started carrying guns everywhere on the property and was often heavily armed. One former wrestler recalled that John would sometimes walk into the training room with a pistol, just waving it around at people in some warped show of authority.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of wrestlers there. Doesn't he think they can protect him?
Or he thinks they might turn on him or something.
I guess maybe that's correct.
Krista nailed it. Yep. Some of the wrestlers started to get uncomfortable with that and decided to leave starting around then. But Dave, along with his wife, Nancy, and his kids stayed on. And like we talked about, Dave by nature was more easygoing. And it seemed like he thought he could manage John's moods or that John would actually never hurt anybody. And really, Dave acted as a buffer. Whenever John had conflicts, which we'll talk about a few, with other wrestlers or bizarre demands, Dave often smoothed things over. In Nancy's words, her husband basically insulated the other wrestlers from John in those years. Dave was one of John's favorite athletes. He also kind of became a pseudo-therapist, always reassuring him, letting him talk, but also he seemed to sometimes be the only one that would say, no, John, that's crazy. And for a while that helped. Dave was probably one of the few people that John truly trusted at an earlier point and admired. Sometimes John would convince himself that there were people in the woods watching him. He'd stand outside the mansion videotaping the woods for hours, and then he'd play it back for people and say, okay, look at that. Do you see something moving there? And when they'd say no, he'd get really frustrated. So a lot of times they would just say yes, but some wondered if he was testing them to see if they'd lie to appease him. He was in such a weird place that they didn't know what the right answer was, and it changed from one day to the next.
It almost, I don't know. Did they ever test that maybe he had paranoid schizophrenia or something like that?
Yes.
It just seems
He
okay.
did.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is what it
nailed
sounds
it.
like.
Yep.
Yep.
He absolutely did.
Okay.
And they did test him because they had to see if he was competent to stand trial, which we will get to.
Okay.
Jumping ahead there.
No, but
Sorry.
it's a good point. It is, because I'm sure other people are thinking he sounds,
Just like that.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It just
Mhm.
sounds like there's something else going on there. Not that
Mhm.
he's just like eccentric.
Yeah.
You know,
That
sounds
is
like there's
exactly it.
an issue.
There are other things going on, and all of these people that are around him day in and day out should have gotten him help.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're going
Got
to
it.
talk about a lot of examples where it should have been okay, now we're going to get him help.
Mhm.
It's so hard though when he's, like we said before, he's paying all these people to be there with him. He's paying people off to appease him left and right.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to get on his bad side because he is so big,
Exactly.
and they just have always appeased him.
Yeah.
And they get paid for it. And
Right. They don't want
Basically-
to rock that boat.
yeah, they don't want to make him mad at them because then he might cut them off, you know?
Yep. Because, we talked about how 1988, he started going downhill. We had the Olympics coming in 1992. So you've got all of the things coming before that. And then when it's a real big break, we have the 96 Olympics coming.
Yeah.
So they're like, just one more.
Yeah.
Just one more. Let me get to this one and then I'll retire and I'll
Help him.
leave. Yeah. Yeah.
So sad. Makes you feel
It
bad
is.
for him.
Yes. One wrestler talked about John looking into a field full of deer and saying, those are really people dressed as deer. Or he would say, those are mechanical deer planted by somebody. And when the wrestler would say, I'm sure you're right, John, he'd say, no, they're not. They're really deer. So they couldn't figure out like if they needed to say, oh, yeah, I'm sure. Or if they argued with him and then he would get mad.
Yeah.
I mean, both were wrong. And, again, many of the wrestlers, especially those that he wasn't particularly close with and didn't spend a lot of time with, they thought he was eccentric because, again, rich people, especially him, aren't, quote, mentally ill. They're just eccentric,
Yeah.
which is what you see on a lot of the reporting on this. Dave, though, would never appease John. If John said to him, look at those mechanical deer, Dave would say, John, those aren't mechanical, they're real. He was attempting to try to keep John grounded as much as possible.
Sounds exhausting.
Yes, it does. On top of training and trying to help other athletes train.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the pond incident because, of course, there was a pond incident. One day, John just casually drove his car straight into the pond on Foxcatcher Estate.
It is Steve Carell.
Michael Scott there.
It says to turn right.
No, Michael, that's...
There's a lake.
Yes.
The technology wants me to do it.
Yes.
Oh.
So, he's rich, no big deal. He just bought another car. The very next day, he showed up with this brand new car. He had invited a high-ranking wrestling official to ride around the estate and see Foxcatcher. As they were driving, he drove straight into the pond.
Again.
2 days, 2 cars, 1 pond. Yep.
Oh, geez.
Okay.
At this point, it stopped looking like an accident and more like a new aquatic hobby. I don't know. Imagine being that poor official. You think you're getting a tour of a millionaire's fancy training facility, and suddenly you're reenacting The Little Mermaid in a Lincoln Town car. At this point, everyone around him knew that he was off. But again, he's just eccentric. I guess that's the reason to get a new car. I don't know. Incidents like this were common, and we're going to talk about quite a few more. But they're all going to have you thinking, hey, maybe somebody should intervene before he accidentally or purposely kills somebody. I don't know. They're just each of them a flashing red light that his grip on reality is slipping away. John decided that Dave and the coach, Rob, who we've mentioned, had unlocked some kind of supervillain power at one point. He thought they were controlling the weather. If there was rain, wind, snow, clearly it was Dave and Rob aiming this cosmic thermostat at poor John. So he would look out the window, see a drizzle, and immediately thought, well, Dave's trying to sabotage my day again.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if he thought his wrestling team had quietly joined the cast of X-Men or what. According to USA Today's coverage of the trial that's coming, John told people that he believed Dave and Rob could manipulate the rain and the wind specifically to interfere with him. And he used that as part of his justification for eventually distrusting them. Nancy also mentioned in interviews that John accused Dave of messing with the weather whenever conditions didn't go his way. So he's not just saying this quietly to himself.
He's telling everybody.
Telling everybody. Another time, John decided his estate was haunted.
The wires or barbs in the walls aren't going to help with that one.
Nope.
No.
Or, checking for the tunnels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Foxcatcher Farm was apparently now home to ghosts. He told people he could see spirits lurking around the property and even accused them of messing with him. I don't think that the ghosts were ever fully taken care of. They just learned to live with them, I guess.
Have an exorcist or something.
I don't know. Not that I could find. You would think with the money he could bring in one. Maybe just to sage the place or something. I don't know.
Maybe they weren't messing with him as much as Dave and the weather.
That's true. He also had the tunnels to be concerned with.
Yeah.
Dave was convinced that people, like I had mentioned, were burrowing under his mansion to kill him. And not just a burglar here or there, mind you. In his head, it was this elaborate underground invasion. So he did order staff to dig up huge sections of the estate looking for these supposed passageways, like some deranged groundhog on a mission, I guess. They found nothing, but he kept obsessing. So we have John yelling at workers to hunt down people in the tunnels,
People in the walls.
Ghosts
going through walls. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, please control the weather. Better. Do it
Better.
better.
Yes.
Yes.
In my favor.
Yeah. No rain or wind.
John also became convinced that there were mechanical trees on his property. He said that his father had installed them probably as props for garden parties. He said the trees could walk and move around. He thought that they could just pull themselves up out of the ground and wander around the property at night.
Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
We're just pulling all the movies here.
He's like convinced that they're in a different place in the morning than where they were when he went to bed.
Mm.
John also told people that he could see Disney characters in the woods too, hiding in the trees. And one day, out of the blue, he started frantically shooting at geese because he thought they were casting an evil spell on him. I mean, my point in telling you all of these things so far and the things to come is how many opportunities there were.
To try to get him help.
Honestly, this just makes me
Mhm.
really sad for him because there were so many people around him
Mm-hmm.
that should have helped him. He was
Yeah.
clearly not
Well,
okay,
Mm-hmm.
and he needed help, and no one did. And everyone just stood by and watched this.
Yes.
Everyone just blamed it on
Being eccentric. Mhm.
and not seeing it for what it really was. That is
makes
really
me really
sad.
sad for him.
Yeah.
And again, we're in the late 80s, early 90s. Therapy isn't the same as it is today.
Yeah.
Everybody get therapy. It's hugely helpful for anybody.
Mhm.
And it would have been great if anybody had thought trees moving was maybe
Or
Let's
geese
get him checked
casting
out
spells.
by a
Yeah.
doctor
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
instead of just trying to appease him.
Probably almost fed into his delusions because
I'm sure.
they all felt like they had to agree too.
Or get yelled at. Or
Yeah, so if they kept
No.
telling him, yeah, you're right, then he's not going to think anything is wrong either.
Mm-hmm.
One more example of this was the treadmills. John suddenly declared that all treadmills in the Foxcatcher training facility had to go. According to one source, it was because they were making time go backwards. Others theorized,
The running it powered the machine.
and then it made time go backwards.
Yeah.
Now it's yesterday.
I'm confused.
As they all were. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yep. Every single treadmill was hauled out. So now these athletes are trying to train for the Olympics. And sorry, folks, cardio is canceled.
run
No
around
more
the
treadmills.
complex.
Exactly. By the mid 1990s, John's paranoia had reached absurd levels. John now became convinced that various groups were out to get them. And this went beyond the generic burglars or tunnel people or ghosts. He had conspiracy theories that he was constantly talking about involving the CIA, the FBI, Soviet spies, and even a shadowy clan of Nazis and Tibetan Buddhist monks working together. So that's a lot of people trying to get you.
Mm-hmm.
John also started to claim that he was someone else. He started wearing loose red clothing for a while, and at various times he told people that he was either Jesus Christ or the Dalai Lama or a Russian Tsar. One day he's announcing he's the Messiah, and the next he's a Tibetan spiritual leader. And this wasn't just private mutterings either. He demanded that others acknowledge these identities. According to wrestlers, he refused to speak to people unless they addressed him as the Dalai Lama during some of these episodes.
So maybe DID as well.
Yeah.
Could be.
He once even wanted to be introduced to an audience at a wrestling meet as the Dalai Lama. So, in short, John's sense of reality by the
Shattered.
mid-90s, completely left the building. He also developed strange dislikes. For example, the color black. One day, John suddenly decided that the color black was evil and bad luck. He ordered all objects that were Black to be removed from the training facilities. He even got rid of his Black Jeep and banned Black workout gear. He also started excluding Black athletes from Team Foxcatcher at this time.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It's unclear if this is driven by racial prejudice or his paranoia taking it to the extreme. One of the athletes that he fired was Kevin Jackson, a world and Olympic champion in his weight class. Kevin was shocked. He was one of 5 men who were removed because of their race, and they desperately wanted someone to hold John accountable. So they are reaching out to the Wrestling Federation and others, but nothing happened. And then these Black athletes felt justifiably so betrayed by the athletes that chose to stand behind John after this happened.
Yeah.
I would.
Mhm.
Yeah. With the color Black, after John was sent to jail, he insisted all buildings on his estate be painted Black. So that color thing stayed with him for a while. John armed himself to the teeth. He had an arsenal of weapons at his disposal. Notably, he brought an armored personal carrier, basically a military-grade tank-like vehicle that he would drive around the estate for security. One of the prosecutors later described the scene. He said du Pont was an extraordinarily wealthy expert marksman, barricaded in a 47-room mansion on hundreds of acres with high-powered weapons, an armored personal carrier in the garage, and perhaps a .50 caliber machine gun. It was not a normal situation. John's erratic behavior did alarm people, but here's the thing. His wealth shielded him from consequences for years. 8 years. If a random person started doing any of these one things, they would either have somebody intervene, they might get help from a therapist or be institutionalized, maybe even have the cops called on them,
Yeah.
Something.
But when you're John du Pont, millionaire benefactor, the local police and all of the wrestling officials tended to look the other way. They just chalked it up, like we've said a few times, to his eccentricities. All right, so now that we've set the scene, this is where we're going to end part 1. But don't worry, part 2 is available in your feed right now. In part 2, we'll go through what happened in 1996 and all of the details. There is a lot that I wanted to talk about so you could get the full scope of what was going on at Foxcatcher and how many times an intervention, anything could have been done.
Yeah.
A lot of red flags that should have tipped someone off to do something.
Absolutely.
It kind of makes sense. Like he didn't just go from, hey, I love all these guys to shooting somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a lot of lead up there.
Yeah.
Years and years
Unfortunately.
and years of lead up. Yep.
And super unfortunate that no one ever did anything, said anything, got him help.
Right. And it gets to the point where it ends in murder.
Yeah.
We will talk about all of that in part 2. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to see any of the resources that we used, you can go to our blog, which is on our website, crimeclueless.com. We'll list all of those and give a detailed rundown on this case. If you like listening to Crime Clueless, we would love if you would give us a rating on whatever device or app or whatever you're listening on. You can scroll down past our episodes on Apple Podcasts and just give us a star rating. Absolutely love that. And it helps our podcast be shown to more people, which helps us grow our community, which we love.
Yes.
You can also give a rating on Spotify. Up at the top, you can see the reviews. There's the little, is it the 3 dots that you click on?
Yeah, you click the 3 dots and then give a rating or rate the podcast or something like that.
Yeah. We would also love if you would subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have some fun new content in the works that will be coming out soon.
You don't want to miss it.
No, you don't. I'm very excited. But if you would subscribe to us there, we would be ever so grateful. We are on socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We are at Crime Clueless. If you remember when this happened or any of the details that we've shared that are the most shocking, we'd love to hear it. Or you can send us an email, crimeclueless@gmail.com. Thank you again so much for listening. As always, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Bye.
Bye everyone.